I'm Jennifer and I'm the owner of Porcelynne, and in today's tutorial I'm going to explain a little bit about lace appliques and flower and ribbon adornments. So to get started, let's look down at the table. So on here I have a couple different things we're going to do. We have the little bows, and I have these bows, and we're going to sew a bow onto the bra. Now the cool thing about these bows is that you can use them to hide sewing mistakes. So you can add bows to the strap point where there's stitches. You can even add them up here. You can add them down here. Any place where you actually want to hide things, you can add them to. And my packages come in, I think, a pack of 12 or a pack of 100. And you can also use these on panties and knickers to also kind of make a pair, like a matching set, a little bit more cohesive. And I'm going to show you how to do that at the very end of this video, but I figure I'd explain that first. We are also going to go over appliques, how we can sew and attach an applique to fabric, and also cutting out some lace to then applique on your fabric. So I'm going to set this one to the side. And we're going to do two different ways of attaching an applique. So for this one, I'm going to use this piece of satin. We're actually going to put both things on this satin. It's a little wrinkled, so I'm going to come over here to my iron. You can shoot the, yeah. So I'm just going to come over here and iron on here. And make sure that if your fabric is synthetic, that your iron is not too hot. Here I have a piece of muslin I can use as a pressing cloth. That way you make sure that you're not melting anything. I actually melted something to my iron the other day, so that's why I have the muslin on here. So you can also use a piece of silk organza if you have that, and that actually works really well as a pressing cloth because you can see right through it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to attach this applique onto this fabric. And how we're going to do that is I'm just going to use a glue stick. And this is just a washable, water soluble. It's one of my daughter's. And I'm just going to go kind of cover the back side of it. And when you wash this, this will all come out. And you just place it wherever you would like. I'm going to let that dry for a few minutes. I got glue all over my hand, and you can tell it's dry because the purple turns into clear. So we're going to sew that over at the machine in just a second. We're going to come and we're going to cut a piece of this beautiful lace. So something you can do is you can actually cut out a single little flower from your lace, and this is a little bit tiny, and you can do an applique. Now you can really cut any lace in any shape and form. I'm going to just do a small one, just kind of cutting. I'm going to actually cut around this flower and then go back in and clean it up. Just going to try not to cut the stitches. I'm trying to cut the net because the net will not fray. If you cut the stitches will fray. But I can also go back and clean this up after I've attached it. Okay. Now, so I've got this flower and I want to applique it. Now, the cool thing is that we can actually applique it and cut, once we sew it on, we can cut the backing away so it gives a little bit more of a sheer look. Now, a lot of laces that you get like this, if they're old, after you do some washing of it, they could start to disintegrate and fall apart. And that happens with any really kind of thin lace. So if you want to have something that's going to last a little bit longer, what we can do is we can actually fuse it to a piece of, kind of sheer. This is the 15 denier backing. So we can fuse it to this, and then we can sew that onto here and then remove the backing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out just a little square. Okay. And then I'm going to use what we call, it's a wonder under. And this is actually, it's a two-sided fusing. Now I don't want to have it so it sticks to my iron. So I'm just going to trim a little bit around the edges so it's just a hair smaller than this. And then I'm going to go back to my iron and fuse it to the iron. Okay, can we try the iron again?
Nope.
Nope, that camera still doesn't work. Okay, you can keep it on the table. Okay, I will be right back. I'm just fusing it. Actually, yeah. So I'll just explain what I'm doing. So I'm actually putting this down on the table first, with the paper side up with the fusible facing this. Now I've got my muslin underneath to keep it kind of all in place. I'm going to come over to the iron and do a quick fuse, iron and steam, and then you can see that that is now attached. Now what's really cool is we can actually then, of course, if you have glasses or you have better vision, you might have a better luck pulling the paper off. You can see, okay, so I've gotten the paper, you can kind of see it, you can see it's all shiny on here, so I'm pulling the paper off. And then what we're going to do is we're going to apply this to it. Now if I iron right on top, this sticky stuff is going to stick to my iron, so I'm actually going to iron it face down. And then it's just going to stick to my muslin. And I have to pull that off my muslin. And you can see it's actually, it looks really nice on here. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to cut all that sticky stuff off because we don't want that right now. And this is where you can kind of clean up the edges before we start our applique process. Now to make it easier when we go to the sewing machine, I am going to use black thread so you can actually see what it is I am sewing. So it's going to look really ugly, but if you use a matching thread to the applique, it won't be visible at all. Okay, so now this is all ready to applique. So then I can sew it on here and then cut away the backing, and it should be really nice. Okay, so let's go over to the sewing machine. And let's see. Whoops. So we have this piece and we have this one. Since this one's already attached, I'm going to go ahead and stitch this together. Now, because I'm going to keep it on here, like I'm not actually going to cut the backing out, because you really can't do that since you glued it anyways. I'm just going to do a straight stitch around the edge of the applique, trying to keep it as kind of on the applique as possible. But if as long as your thread is matching, it should be fine. Okay, get my needle up. So your needle could get a little sticky because we have that glue on there. So you just want to be careful. And what I like to do is kind of keep, almost just like walk it. So you can kind of walk the needle. So I'm using my hand to rotate the needle. I'm going real slow. Now it would be a good idea if I actually wore my glasses right now because I'd probably see this a little better. And then kind of coming to the edge. And so I'm really just kind of walking it around the edges, so I'm not really sewing on the fabric. So sometimes it sticks because it's sticky. Okay, let's see. I think that loosened it up. Okay. And I'm just rotating it with the needle down as I'm going around this. And if this were in that white or matching thread, it would not be noticeable at all when I'm finished. Okay. Okay, now I've got that funny little thing coming out, like the stem. So I'm going to sew down the stem. And then I'm just going to pivot back. And see, it kind of sticks a little bit, so I'm just going to rotate it a little bit back and forth until it loosens up. The right microphone on? Oh, okay. My husband grabbed my glasses. He's my cameraman. Well, he's actually the camera operator. We have 4 cameras now. So this is an upgrade. So there might be some difficulties. I think one camera is frozen right now, so we're going to have to go fix that. It looks like these ones look okay. And of course it's the camera we bought first for our upgrade, and we got different cameras for all the other ones. So I think we just end up getting a bad camera. So of course it's going to get upgraded again. And it just takes a little while. I mean, you can see the lines around it. It looks good. It's not really stretching the fabric or anything because I'm making sure I'm wiggling it. You can see where it kind of pulls. You've got to loosen it up, and that's just because the needle itself is getting sticky. Okay, it looks like this is going straight over to this leaf right here. Okay, so now coming back, you can see there's all these little bumps. I'm going to try and stitch right along where they're all connected because I don't want to be going zigzag on that. Okay. And then whenever I stop sewing, I like to sew just a little bit past it. And I'll take the thread out. And then what I want to do is I want to pull the threads to the back. You can use this with like a little pin because we want to have all 4 threads on the back side, so when we trim, it's not going to look, well, we want to secure them. Okay, it's almost there. Of course, there's a knot on that side. Okay, so I've got all my 4 threads back here, so you could sew that, you can tie them all individually. Or if they're right next to each other, just tie them together and do a couple ties so you have a knot on it. And that way nothing will be showing on the outside. And I just broke that thread. So hopefully that knot will be good. And it's not going on any garment. You can see we have a nice finish around the edge. Okay, so now we have the applique, this other applique that we made. Now this one is not stuck down on it. I suppose we could kind of tack it in a few different places with the glue, but this one I'm actually just going to be pinning in place. So I'm going to make sure that I'm pinning them all in the same direction so the pins can stay when they need to stay. So kind of like a pinwheel. And then I'm just going to pick a point and start. Now with this, we can't just do a straight stitch. We're actually going to have to do a zigzag around the edges. That way we make sure it is nice and secure to the fabric. So when we trim the fabric underneath, it's not going to fray. Even though we're not supposed to wash in the laundry with any lingerie, you know we all do. So we want to make sure that it keeps its integrity as long as possible. So something is sticky on my, something's down. I don't know, something under there is not wanting to do. So this, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch my machine to a zigzag. And you'll want to practice and play around with this first before you actually decide to sew this on a good garment. Because if you don't like the width of your zigzag, or if you need to make it smaller, you need to know that in advance. So we're going to practice. Okay, I'm going to go right here. I'm actually going to do a very small one. So kind of like almost like you would do for a buttonhole. You can see it's real small, and I'm just slowly going around the edges. Get my pins out as I go. You can see I'm getting to a corner. So I'm going to slowly start pivoting. Okay, getting closer to an edge, slowly start pivoting. Make sure that nothing's getting all bunchy underneath there. Pivoting a little bit more. You can see where I've already finished it. If this was in pink, it would be nearly seamless. like looks at, you know, a professional did it, or, you know, is meant to be. But I'm doing black so you can see the stitches. Now I have played around and I've done stitches that are a little bit bigger on this. And it just makes it so it doesn't last as long. Okay, I'm done. And again, I'm going to pull my stitch to the back. So kind of everything is in the back now. Let's see if I can find it. I don't know if I can find it. No, that's okay. I'll just trim right here. And what we're going to do is we actually want to cut this backing off. So I'm pulling the lace from the fabric. And this is why you want to practice before you actually sew it on a real garment, because I have accidentally cut my good fabric, my lace, which then you have to go in and patch your lace. And then we're just going to trim around the inside of those stitches. Now you don't want to do it so close that you're actually going to cut the threads. You want to do it so you're about, you know, a 1/16 of an inch to an 1/8 of an inch away. So, you know, about 2-3 millimeters away from the edge. Okay, remove that. And now you have a semi-sheer area behind it. Now you can see my fabric puckered. That's because my fabric has stretch. This probably wasn't the best item to do it on. But you can also stabilize the fabric itself. You can actually fuse kind of the tearaway stabilizer that you can put on the back, so when you applique it, nothing stretches, it all stays together. And then once you're done stitching it, you can pull away the tearaway stabilizer and then cut this out. And then you'll have a nice clear opening. Now if we had done this without the backing on it, you know, it might actually stretch a little bit nicer. You can see there's still a little give with that, that sheer cup lining that I have. So we're gonna go back over to the table. And I can turn the machine off. Okay, so we're back over here at the table. Clean up all my little messes. Get all that stuff out of the way. So you can see, I'll show you up close. So this is where we have that little zigzagging going around the edges, and this is one where we just stitched around the edge. So on here we have the bra, and I'm going to be sewing this bow right here at the center front. And so I've gone ahead and I've done a thread, I've doubled my thread, and I've knotted it at the end. Now some of the bows that you can buy are actually stitched together. This one is not. So the ones that are stitched together, you don't have to really do this first stitch, but if you get some of my new ones that I have, they're really just bows, so I can pull this and it'll come completely apart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from, pick which side is the back, because I've already actually stitched this once on a video that just didn't work well. And I'm going to poke this through from the back of the center, because I want to secure this. Get that through. I've got my glasses on now. Okay. So I'm going to bring that through on to the face, so the knot is on the back. And then I'm just going to do a tiny little stitch just to hold that in place. So now it'll keep everything together. Now, if you wanted to be neat about it, you could have actually done it where you pull that to the side, stitch this side down, and stitch this side down so there's no visible stitch. But I'm just going to do it like this. And then we're going to put this right here in the middle. So I think I'm going to do it just a hair lower because I've got a thread sticking out there. So I'm going to then grab my needle and grab this little piece right here. There. So we have that just in place. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through and I'm going to stitch around in a circle all the way around. So am I in camera shot? Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to take like a little piece of fabric from back here. I'm going to try and make sure I don't flip this around. So then I'm going to grab a little piece of fabric here on the bra and then on the bow. And then I'm going to come down to the bottom of the bow, making sure I'm keeping it all straight. Get the, oh, I can tuck those yucky, the knot underneath. I'm gonna sew again the bra, and then a piece of the bow. And then I'm gonna come around to this side. I'm gonna hit just a little piece of stitch on the bra again. So this might be more than what some people will do, but I like to be secure. And then I'm getting back on my bow. Okay, make sure it looks good. I think it looks nice. I'm then gonna take my, we can then kind of do like underneath here, do a little knot, do a little loop. Oops, as there's no knots in there. And you can do that a couple times. I'll do it twice. So basically making myself a little knotted loop. And then I'm going to take that, push that all the way through to the back side. And then I'm just going to cut it. This way the threads are actually hidden in the seam. What did I do? And I failed because I tied it around that loop. So now my threads are in the front. And so there's no real fixing that. So this is not going to be a permanent situation. I would probably want to redo that bow and make sure I got that thread on the back. But there you go. That should do with, should be pretty good when you do any hand washing. And let me, where'd the other one go? So there you go. Thanks for watching.